Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number 4 still waiting for, well, bring on the chase. Out on the field at Mile High, Broncos win is our desire. Coupled with Breck, Brew, and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR. We're live from Studio A here at the DNVR Bar. The A stands for absolutely perfect, because this is the absolute perfect dramatic scenario to talk about when it comes to Broncos ownership. I got to be honest, ownership normally doesn't interest me all that much. Obviously, it's more interesting now that we're nearing a conclusion, and it just got even more interesting with two of the names who came out that will be part of the bidding process. We'll talk all about it here in just a second, but first a shout out to our presenting sponsor, MSU Denver Online, msudenver.edu/online, where you can scope out all they have to offer. 750 total classes, 45 plus online and hybrid programs, something for everyone over at MSU Denver Online.
My boys, what is up? I mean, if it couldn't get any better this week with a full-on coaching search, now we find out that the Broncos will pretty much officially be sold. Nothing is in the way for them to be sold now, and then it gets juicy. Peyton Manning versus John Elway, plus 4 others to own the team.
This is funny because it's like, this is a classic off-season topic, right? Who you got, Manning or Elway?
Yeah.
It's just actually very applicable this time. And guys, the overwhelming fan favorite in this scenario is Peyton Manning. And I guess I'll ask the question, any surprise from either of you that, like, so I saw a friend of the program, Zach put out a poll. It was 93-7 towards Peyton Manning. You put out a poll that I saw later on.
It was like 7% for John.
It was 88-7, and then 5% wanted neither.
Which is interesting.
Well, I thought it would be interesting.
I guess
to put
that's
that
like
on
the
there.
Bezos people who are just like, give me the richest
yeah,
person.
that's what that is.
That's exactly what it is.
Now the question is, how does the sale take place? I mean, we've heard like the word auction thrown around, and it's not. And what that means is, it wouldn't be simply that. Oh, like, hey, we got $3.5 billion, $3.5 billion. Do we hear 375? 375? Do I hear 375? It would not be like that.
I'm kind of down for that.
It would be awesome if it were, but it would be a case where you simply had the bids come in, the league would have vetted all the possible groups, and out of an obligation to maximize value for those who are inheriting the Broncos, the Bolin the Bolin children, John Bolin, who has his shares, etc. Not Johnny, but John, Pat's brother. Then the obligation would be to maximize the return.
Yeah, and I think even when the trust was set up, it said give it to one of the kids or sell it to the highest bidder.
Right.
And so that's what we're looking at here. And the reason why it may end up not being either of these guys is if a Jeff Bezos comes in or a guy that is just so rich that he can outbid any group comes in. Because the groups, you're probably going to have a lot of multimillionaires and, hundreds of millions of dollars come together, maybe a couple billionaires, but those people can be outbid by someone that has $70 billion, and there's just going to be no competing. So, and why this all came out yesterday, Woodie Paige, after the right of first refusal in the court was denied.
Shout out to the court for getting that done snappy.
Exactly, and I'm sure Joe Ellis is very happy that it happened instead of like last week, because then he would have had to talk about it this past weekend.
I guess they could have held off for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, they can kick the can down the road until the head coach hire.
Yeah.
And so
that was the statement. I got the. Did you get the text?
Yes.
Yes, I did too. Like, oh, yep. Gonna wait until after the coach hire. There we go.
Yep. And so we're going to find out about the Broncos ownership officially, but everyone expects it to be sold. And so what it comes down to, Woodie Paige put it out last night that there's about 6 groups going for it. One of them involves Peyton Manning. One of them involves John Elway. So we get the battle of the quarterbacks here.
Do either of you want to make a case for why people should be higher on Elway?
I do.
Okay.
I do want to. Look, John Elway is a businessman, has much more experience. He is much more qualified than Peyton Manning as the businessman. Now, Peyton is starting to get in there. He has his Omaha Productions that he's got going on.
I do want to add in here, Woodie Paige was on Altitude this morning, and he alluded to essentially like John just wanting to be a minority owner, more on the investment side of this. Peyton wanting to be the day-to-day owner of the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
And not surprised at all, because look at what John's already done. He's already owned businesses inside of football, outside of football. Of course, the Colorado Crush was the Arena Football League that he owned, and then also he's everywhere in Colorado. So many car dealerships around here, and then also, of course, Elway's Steakhouse that he has now. So, and he's been in the day-to-day grind of the NFL for the last decade. So that doesn't surprise me at all. And of course, that does change the conversation, and that makes it even less that people will want John Elway over Peyton Manning, because people want this guy to be a big-time figure. And so it's no surprise that John wants to be involved, because NFL's a booming business. It's a great thing to be in. So the case for John, though, would be his business record is much, much further than Peyton Manning's right now. And the other thing for John is there is one true Denver Bronco, and it's John Elway. Peyton Manning, in my opinion, is a Bronco more than a Colt, and I think he has proved that over his past 5 years by staying in Denver. But when it comes to who the true Bronco is, it is John Elway.
Yeah, but at the same time, John Elway, very successful on the car dealership side, but there have been some business missteps for him. His track record was not uniformly successful. For one thing, you go back, he turned down the chance to buy into the Broncos in 1998.
But he wouldn't have been able to do it anyway, right? Because of the right of first refusal.
Well, that's what caused it to be challenged. But in the end, every one of Kaiser's Kaiser challenges to it fell short.
Right, but
So,
that's what flared the whole thing up.
That's what got it. That's what got it going. So he turned that down, and then he's had some missteps. He invested in what turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. He and Mike Shanahan lost a lot of money investing in a chain of failed upscale laundromats, failed e-commerce site for sports. So Elway's business record.
I remember that e-commerce.
Yeah, MVP.com.
So it's him, MJ, and Wayne Gretzky.
Yes.
It's pretty good.
So yeah, it hasn't been all smiles and sunshine on the business side. He does have obviously more decades involved with business, but there have been some misses. Whereas Peyton Manning, it's fairly limited at this point, but Omaha Productions appears to be a smashing success that could end up being something that is worth hundreds of millions of dollars very soon, based on the deals they've made with ESPN and the potential for Amazon to get involved with that. As anyone in television knows, the money is in production.
Okay, well, let me counter this, Mace. You want an experienced head coach, right? You want a head coach that's done this before, right? Isn't that a huge reason? Just yesterday, you brought up why Dan Quinn is
okay. Where are you going to get it? No. Where are you going to get somebody who's experienced owning a team? That doesn't exist.
No. Is that right?
It's not. It's right, but it's not. You're making a specious argument, Zach. These aren't the same thing.
I'm making a counterpoint.
It's easy to find people who have been head coaches before, but finding someone who's owned a team before, these people generally don't exist.
I'm not talking about owning a team. I'm saying I'm not saying John Elway's owned an NFL franchise. Of course not. I'm just making the argument that if and again, I'm for Peyton Manning, and we can get to that in just a second. But I'm making the counterpoint.
Same thing, Zach.
But no,
it's not the same thing.
There are some similarities between owning a business and owning and running a team.
Well,
I do
and
think
Peyton's
there's
running a business right now, so there you go.
Yeah,
Well,
but the difference is, one guy was calling the shots for decades, and the other has been doing it for a year or two. So I'm just saying that's the case for Peyton, as he has the experience, and that's something we're talking about right now. It just happens to be, and it also just happens to be something we're talking about when the head coach search.
Yeah,
some people want experience for that reason, to get those bad things out of the way.
And let me just add to this and say, John Elway actually has experience running an NFL team, whereas Peyton Manning has no experience in that regard. Now, you can make the argument that he was calling a lot of shots when he was in the league, but
that's also why people, I think, are so cool on him, why we see these poll results, because it's the last 6 years that people are thinking about. You can call it recency bias. You can say, well, the NFL is not for long. What have you done for me lately? But that's why when you take the temperature of the fan base, it is so overwhelmingly for Peyton. Peyton hasn't failed running a team.
Exactly.
But the Broncos have been a failure the last 5 years.
And it's such a feather in the cap of Peyton Manning that universally everyone just expects he'll be successful in whatever he does.
Yep. Yep.
And it's not that easy. It's not that obvious, but I'm absolutely also in the camp of wanting Peyton Manning's group to win this. And I honestly don't care who else is a part of it. Like Bezos, any of those. I want Peyton Manning. I want him being the figurehead of the franchise. And like even down to that, when you're talking about the face of the franchise, which Peyton Manning kind of still is, even though he's been retired for multiple years, he's still the person that Broncos fans want representing their team the most in any way. But like as the face, he's younger, he looks fresh. Peyton looks like he's ready to go attack and succeed in a job every single day. We know John Elway wants to play golf. And hey, I fully 100% relate to that. But that he doesn't want to come in here and do the Pat Bowlen thing where he's in the office every single day talking to everyone. And that was, clear from what Woody said this morning. That's another thing that is a huge feather in the cap of Peyton Manning, where it's like, I fully believe that Peyton Manning will go have a desk at Dove Valley and be a part of this. And that is attractive to me. It also comes with questions of he's going to be doing something he's never done before. But so was John Elway when he got here, for the most part. And he succeeded in it. And I have even more belief in Peyton Manning to succeed in whatever he does.
Well, and here's also the thing with Peyton Manning, and maybe even the biggest argument for him. Not only is he the Denver Broncos still of the past 5 years pretty much, and the only thing that the organization's proud of for the most part, but on top of that, he's almost the face of the NFL still. And to have the face of the NFL still and be the owner of your team, he probably would become the face of the NFL if he actually got back into football in this way. And that has so much power that would keep that would bring the Broncos back to where they were in 2012 to 2015, where people want to tune in, where people want to care, where the Broncos are always on the forefront of people's minds. So that right there, John Elway is obviously a huge NFL figure, but he's still huge in Colorado. He's not necessarily still huge around the country. So just having Peyton there for that is something outside of the organization. That would be another huge get. And super quick, we had someone in the comment section that says, why not both? Well, because Woody said they are in different groups. But hey, I say why not both if it is that Peyton Manning is going to be the figurehead and John just wants to be investor. But we don't need to talk about that since it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, technically they could join forces.
Especially if John's okay taking a step back.
Yeah,
maybe they just don't feel like there's room for both of them in a group.
That's what I think. And here's the other thing with Peyton Manning, and you talk about him being, the figurehead of the ownership group. He would be the type of, he's going to be the one representing the Broncos at ownership meetings. Mm-hmm. He's going to be the one, potentially joining the competition committee at some point. Like, that stuff is valuable.
Here's the thing, though. Like, if let's say he invests, say, 5%, right? It's possible you're looking at a situation where he is the team president, but he's not the managing partner.
Okay.
So the managing partner is the person that's ponying up a majority of the cash. And that's the person who would be the owner, as in owning the team. Manning could easily be on the competition committee, no doubt, because that's mostly GMs and VPs of football operations, et cetera. And certainly I think it would be only a matter of time before he end up on that committee. But I don't see a scenario where Peyton is putting up 5, and really at the absolute maximum, there's been talk about if the Manning family pooled their resources. 10% is probably the absolute maximum they could put in. And I can't see an owner that has 50% plus of the franchise that has put in literally billions of dollars saying, I'm not going to be the one who represents the team at the meetings. And also another thing, and my radio partner Eric Goodman put it this way, who's accepting the trophy when you win the Super Bowl? It's the owner's the one who gets it first. So Peyton could be the team president, but whoever's bringing $2 billion or more into the equation is going to be the one that gets the trophy.
You don't think there's a chance that Peyton has a buddy who says like, I'm all in on the investment part, but I don't want anything to do with the football part.
To have a buddy, though, that has $2 billion, those aren't just around.
No, but when you're Peyton Manning, you can be buddies with anyone.
so
He swims in some deep waters. I mean,
Yeah.
there are billionaires around Augusta National where Peyton is a member. He's pretty well connected, but those types of billionaires, it's hard for them to say, yeah, I'll let you.
I could see that.
So then my question is, when talking about these groups, it doesn't have to involve a billionaire. Is there a limit to how many people can be involved? Because what if it is 10 people?
I think we could create a pretty good GoFundMe if you can have unlimited people.
Yeah.
So no, but what I'm saying is, can it be 10 people each with $400 million, and then it's not a billionaire that's investing $2 billion, turning it over to Peyton. It's 10 people coming together and then saying, well, yeah, I'm Joe Schmo. You're Peyton Manning. Of course you're going to lead this group.
It's technically possible, but the league does not favor that. As far as people buying a team, the league would prefer that at least one person have 50% plus one.
Well, and so isn't that why the league just doesn't favor ownership groups anyways? And maybe maybe this pod isn't going to mean anything in a couple of months when Jeff Bezos or Anschutz comes in and just says, here's $5 billion, and according to the trust, they got to take the highest offer.
They accept that that the cost of franchises has reached a point to where there is such a limited pool of people who could put up $4.5 billion that there could be multiple investors, but they do want to have one person who is putting up more than half of the money. And not get to a point where it's like 30 investors. That's something where it's getting out of control. They want it to be reasonably limited, in part, Zach, to avoid the kind of things that we saw with the team passing to the Billionaires, the kind of complications we've even seen in places like New York and Pittsburgh, which are family-owned franchises. In the case of the Giants, there are two families, the Maras and the Tishes involved, and now you're getting toward more people being involved with that and the pie being divided in more different ways, which is complicating some things long-term.
Well, and so I think this kind of boils down to an interesting decision by the trust. Are they allowed to say, we think it's in the best interest of the Broncos to choose Peyton Manning's group? Or do they have to say, we have to go with the highest bidder? Because then it's not just down to Peyton Manning and John Elway, or really Peyton Manning being the front runner. It truly just comes down to, you hope Peyton Manning surrounded himself with the deepest pockets, because as we've said, Peyton is very limited in how much he can invest. The amount of money he has is mind-blowing to us, but in this conversation, it's 10%.
My grandma gave me $100 for Christmas. I'll pitch it in.
There you go.
Wow.
May says you can't do that.
No?
I wish you could look. I wish there was a way to have a Packers ownership structure.
Well, what if
where the public collectively own the team? Enough people putting up like $1,000 each.
But what if
I wish that could happen, but the NFL will not approve that.
What if we could create a GoFundMe that was help Peyton Manning buy the Broncos? And so everyone pools their money together and sends it to Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning now increases his net worth to help the Broncos.
Is that really the right thing? Like,
to get to
there
$4
are so
billion,
many.
how much would
There are so many
better ways.
needy causes out there that I'm like, I mean, he's already worth. The Mannings are already worth a heck of a lot of money here. I think they would be. I actually think they would be embarrassed by that, and they wouldn't. And they would turn it down.
Well, what would happen
because it'd be a bad look.
It would be really cool because we could probably raise like $1 million on this thing. And then Peyton would just be like, I'm donating this to charity.
Or or we raise $1 million and we donate it to victims of the fires in Boulder County.
Exactly. We already...
Again, there are more important things to do than that.
There are certainly. But I just want to know if we could, if we wanted to. Real quick, before we move on, Zach, you made the case for the 7% who want John Elway. Mace, are you interested in making the case for the 5% who want neither?
I think Zach kind of put it well. I mean, it's people who want the richest person possible, the most resource-heavy person possible, that want a Jeff Bezos, that want, one of these groups that's like the Abu Dhabi group that bought Manchester City, they're made of money to just come in, buy the team, and throw every last dollar, pound, euro, yen at this team to build up the resources. mean, there's only so much you can do because obviously you have a salary cap, but to build up everything around it,
Salary cap's fake.
build a stadium with a retractable roof, so you can have the Super Bowl here and build Bronco land out toward DIA. Just that's the sort of thing you're talking about.
I mean, those people aren't wrong.
Yeah.
What have we
No,
said?
no.
Haven't we said that for the past couple of years? Is you want the person that has the deep pockets that can just say, "Oh, you need this? Okay, here you go." And I still personally want Peyton Manning here, and the reason for that is he's not just going to barely have enough money to buy the team, and he's not just going to surround himself with people that barely have enough money. If he buys the team, he's going to do it with the right people that are going to say, "Peyton, whatever you want, we're going to have the resources."
Right,
for
and
it."
if he goes, to this person and says, "Hey, I need an extra $10 million or whatever to sign Calais Campbell," just thinking of a random guy that the Broncos lost out on recently.
42-year-old Calais Campbell at this time.
He's got to come home sometime.
I need this money to sign whoever. If they say no, you're not going to like what Peyton.
You're not going to say no. That's
Exactly,
it.
exactly. So they're going to just say Peyton's going to have a yes man with a checkbook.
Cash in escrow is not going to be an issue.
Yes.
No.
In all
We won't.
likelihood, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Mike Trout throwing in $1.99.
Hey,
Let's go,
Mike
buddy.
Trout.
Let's go.
Maybe that's what we should do. All Super Chat money should go to the
The Manning ownership fund.
help Peyton Manning buy the team fund.
Yeah, we'll title it "Pay It Forward," but PEY.
Very good.
Yes. We're already on the right track. We're gonna make this happen, Peyton. Don't you worry. All right. We could also maybe donate some percentage of sales from the DNVR Bar to the Pay It Forward cause. And hopefully you'll come down and help us do that, because there's great food down here, great drinks, great atmosphere, great place to watch a game amongst friends. It's Wednesday. Feels like Thursday to me.
It feels like Friday to me.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
we're on
it's bad.
Friday. We're on Friday reads.
Oh,
this.
Because
That's the
we
fifth show of
technically
the week.
started. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
our week started on Saturday.
That's the thing, because the game happened a day earlier. We're
And
all
we haven't
off right
stopped
now.
since.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess
stop,
it kind of
won't
is
stop.
Friday for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to going to Big Drive Spence's bachelor party starting tomorrow.
Mace, you want to
so.
make this our Friday too?
Sure, but
There
we
might
still
be
have to do
one
the
or
show
two
tomorrow,
things
right?
to talk about.
We'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry.
Yeah, we got coaching candidates to talk about. We're putting
Yeah.
the coach stuff on hiatus today.
Anyways, I won't
No,
be
we're
at the
getting right into it.
I won't be at the bar this weekend, but most weekends I'm down here. So some of you guys are gonna have to come fill in for me this weekend. Come hang out at the bar, watch the playoff games, watch the Avs, watch the Nuggets. Have a great time. Be surrounded by other great Denver sports fans. Never have to worry about asking for the sound to be on. All that garbage that you have to do when you go to other places. Worrying that if you cheer after an Avs goal, you're gonna get dirty looks. This isn't that type of place. So come on down, hang out, be around people like you.
Now, if you cheer after a Predators goal, though.
A fraudulent Predators goal.
And speaking of paying it forward, our friends over at Sexy Pizza are paying it forward in multiple ways. Of course, they have their Philanthro Pies, which gives back to the community. But
Great name, by the way.
today, they are paying it forward to their customers, to you guys. If you use the code SEXYDNVR on their website, you'll get 20% off. This is the last day to use this code to get 20% off Sexy Pizza. No better way to celebrate Friday or Wednesday today than with Sexy Pizza. And use that code SEXYDNVR to get the best pizza out there. And of course, Mace talks about their salads being fantastic too. So get a well-rounded meal, get some pizza, get some carbs, get some greens, get some delicious salad. Smash that code SEXYPizza.
I can't say enough about that Italian salad that I had 2 nights ago, guys. I think it was tremendous.
I love a good
Absolutely-
Italian salad.
It's more
absolutely
lunchtime today, and it makes sense why I'm hungry now.
Yeah, I actually got a nice breakfast today. It was delicious.
Yes, I had 2 poached eggs, so
Nice.
it was a
You
breakfast.
fancy.
I have a microwave egg poacher.
Okay,
Does
you're
it
not,
about
you're not as
75
fancy.
seconds. Perfectly, though.
I don't even care that this place doesn't sponsor us. They're just so good that I'll just give them a shout out. I already knew I was going to be breaking. I've been really good on my diet,
Yeah.
but I already knew there's no way I'm upholding that during a bachelor party.
No.
So I broke it this morning. Good old Pete's Kitchen down the street.
Oh, yeah.
Breakfast burrito smothered in green chili. 10.
Colorado institution.
Yes.
Pete's Kitchen. Another thing that's hoping to be a Colorado institution is the American Raptors. Of course, that's your Colorado rugby team that is rebranded, but this rebrand is here to stay. The American Raptors are composed of crossover athletes who ended their first season at 5-5. These are former athletes from other sports who are now taking on the challenge of rugby, taking their athleticism that they've displayed in other sports and putting it toward the game of rugby, because we want to see the U.S. national team be more successful on a global level, get some better athletes in this country to play rugby. That's what the American Raptors are doing. These athletes come from backgrounds in football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, soccer, track and field. They possess all the necessary skills to excel at the great game of rugby, and you can watch these guys grow and watch them play for free. That's right, free. Head on over to AmericanRaptors.com and grab your free ticket for the upcoming season. If you can't watch in person, you can also watch it for free on their website, AmericanRaptors.com. And if you miss watching him live or watching the stream, no problem. Our guy Colton Strickler has it all covered at DNVR Rugby. He's got the weekly DNVR Rugby podcast. He's got those Rugby 101 podcasts so you can learn about the sport of rugby. It's a lot of fun. So check out all that out. Check out the American Raptors at AmericanRaptors.com and DNVR Rugby on Twitter, and of course here at the DNVR.com.
Okay, so quickly, I have a question for you guys. Is being a owner of a successful sports team the only way to be a billionaire and not be hated by most people?
Well, no, because if you're successful, then the rest of the country is going to hate you outside of the town you're in.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But you're going to be beloved by many, which I feel like
You will, within a
most
state.
billionaires can't say.
That's true. It's very true.
Depends how philanthropic you are. Like if you're a billionaire,
There's no amount.
and you're like you're giving away hundreds of millions of dollars.
No one
to
cares.
build a
They just say
hospital. Like,
more.
yeah, I mean, like if
true.
if the team got sold and the bowling children turned around and gave like 50% of what was left after taxes
Right.
to establish the Bolin Center for Alzheimer's Research at some university somewhere,
Yeah.
they'd be beloved.
They get a solid golf clap.
I saw, yeah, I mean.
Oh,
to-
they should get more
to-
than that if they do that.
They should, but
To your point, the Broncos donated, I think last week, they donated $250,000 to the Boulder fires. And I had a lot of people pointing out to me, well, also it was publicly released as a way of saying, like Mike Kliss put it out, saying quietly the Broncos donated this money, and people were like, well, now it's not quiet anymore. So they got bashed for that. And then on top of that, a lot of people said to a person that makes like $50,000, they donated like $6.
yeah,
Is what it was.
That's what I'm telling you. There's no amount of
Right.
money you can
Right.
donate that people will say
Unless
like,
it is like what Mace said. If it's
Yeah.
50%. Well, and then I guess people will say they still have $500 million. Why didn't they donate more? Something like that.
right. Anyways, that's a conversation for another day. Okay.
You want to at least set up your grandkids to where they can do whatever they want. As was said in the movie The Descendants, give them just enough to do something, but not enough to do nothing.
That's a good
Yeah.
good way of thinking of it.
All the bowling kids are going to have enough money to
do
definitely
nothing.
They've
do
already
nothing.
had enough money to do nothing. Okay, let's jump into a coaching update, which to me is like 10 times more exciting, because I have a feeling that it's going to end up being neither that ends up winning this bidding, and then it's just going to be some guy, and it's not going to be as exciting as like the head coach of the Denver Broncos. They have a chance to nail this and bring back exciting football, and obviously the owner can help. But this, to me, I don't know. I like talking about football, not billions.
Of course, and we had someone that reached out to us on Twitter and said, why haven't you guys talked about the right of first refusal? It was our friend Hampus, and the reason is because we did multiple polls throughout the years, and like 3% of people
And we
wanted us
had
to talk
talked
about
about it.
3% of people wanted us to talk about ownership updates until there was really something. So we waited for today, and there we
And
go.
we had talked about the right of first refusal just as in the news, like
Yeah.
a lot of times to start the second segment, we'll just hit the news. That's
Right.
one of the things we move past. Anyways, football, coaching. A little bit of an update to the candidate list here. Zach, you want to share that with us?
Yes, Brian Callahan has been added to the list. I believe he was my dark horse when we first started this on Monday, and I really like him. Should we give a 3-minute and 30-second little deep dive into him?
Oh, do we have a timer ready?
Let's go.
All right, let's
Here
get it
we
rolling.
Go.
I think it's your turn.
It's my turn. Brian Callahan, of course. You can't have a Denver Broncos coaching search without having some past connections to the NFL. Of course, his dad, Bill Callahan, former Raiders head coach. Ryan's kind of rolling his eyes. And exactly. I mean, you can't have the NFL.
Nebraska head
Nebraska.
coach, too.
Yes, exactly.
But they hate him there now because he was unsuccessful.
Yeah, I guess that makes me like him a little more.
So he has plenty of ties. Brian has plenty of ties to the NFL, grew up in the NFL, kind of like a Kyle Shanahan with Mike Shanahan, and Brian Callahan, another young offensive mind, just like Kyle Shanahan, 37 years old. Right now, he is the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. He joined the Bengals when Zac Taylor went over to Cincinnati, and of course, they had a very tough year that first year. They got Joe Burrow, a number 1 overall pick, helped develop him. Now they're in the playoffs. They're one of the most exciting offenses in the NFL scheme, but also they have players as well. There's no doubt about that. And Brian Callahan, he's been in the NFL for 12 years. 6 of those have been with the Denver Broncos. He was around for the McDaniels era. Yikes. He stayed around, which I think says something about him, for the Tim Tebow era and John Fox. Then he stayed around for the Peyton Manning era, and his last year with the Broncos was winning Super Bowl 50. So he was with them. So maybe he's the key to the Broncos. Right when he left, the Broncos left. Forget about Peyton Manning. So Brian Callahan, 37 years old, young offensive mind, been around tons of young offensive minds with Joe Burrow, Zac Taylor, and he is a hot young offensive candidate.
So how old was he when he got into the NFL?
25.
Yeah, he was young.
Goodness.
Yeah. Well, it helps when your dad
It does.
has been in the NFL.
But I just like 25-year-old. Yeah, wow, that's impressive.
Look, I mean, that's the whole nepotism thing, right?
12 years. He has 12 years of service in the NFL.
Yeah.
At the age, yeah. So the other thing I thought also is really interesting about him is after he left the Broncos, he'd been with them for 6 years. He'd been a quality control coach, offensive assistant. His first job as a position coach was coaching quarterbacks in Detroit. Jim Caldwell hired him for that job, and we all know the connective tissue between Brian Callahan as an offensive assistant when Peyton Manning was here and Jim Caldwell. So
I find this to be very fascinating.
I do too. And I think if Brian Callahan is the hire, first of all, it would not at all surprise me if he actually brought in Caldwell as his assistant head coach.
Slash offensive coordinator.
Right. Somebody, who's been a head coach twice, older, show him the ropes, kind of offer some guidance and all that. But when everything happened kind of with the news breaking yesterday, the Callahan interview, Peyton Manning involved in a group potentially trying to buy the Broncos, that all came down within a couple of hours. And so we start kind of doing the Charlie Day thing and kind of putting all the threads together and all that. It's like, that's interesting. This is the sort of arrangement that a certain Peyton Manning might approve of.
And don't let yourself believe at all that Peyton Manning can't make a phone call and get someone an interview.
So are we done with the with Callahan talk?
Well, yeah, I just think it's important. I think all of that bing, 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 not coincidental.
That is very bad then. If that's the case, I hate it because if that's the case, then it's going against. And this is a start of another conversation. This is going against. Well, no.
I like it. I'll allow it.
This is more ownership.
Sounds good to me.
And that's why I said we're done with that conversation. If they're just going to give the team to Peyton Manning, do it now. Joe Ellis, come out right now and say the team's up for sale tomorrow. Say we've decided that it's going to be sold for Peyton Manning.
They can't do that though, based on what we were talking about earlier with.
We're pretty sure.
Bidder,
I'm pretty sure that it has to be the highest bidder.
Well, then that's what I'm saying. Then it doesn't. Then you shouldn't care what Peyton Manning has to think here.
If Peyton Manning came here right now and gave me an advice on how to do this podcast, I would take it.
Sure.
So you always listen to Peyton Manning.
Of course, but I don't think they're crafting this for Peyton Manning right now. Now, could his input help because he's just a great person? Absolutely. But the other thing with it is if you're going to have Peyton Manning control this, let him be in the meetings. Push this head coaching search off for a month.
I don't think you can do that either with the ownership thing up in the air. What's weird is I was told a couple years ago that John Elway would have a hard time becoming owner. And maybe it's because he's just going to be a minority owner. It doesn't matter. But you had to have like 3 years outside of an NFL team or something. So maybe that doesn't apply to just investors.
Yeah, it's weird because like you can't like be working for a team actively. Now there's nothing that prevents you from being. Yeah, there's nothing that prevents you from being part of an ownership group and then immediately joining the team.
No, but the other way around.
The other way around, they're real kind of squirrely about
John Elway still has a title in an office at the building.
Yeah.
So, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If Peyton Manning calls and says, hey, look, if I were the owner, I would really strongly consider Brian Callahan as my head coach. If I'm the Broncos, I'm saying, yeah, we'll give that guy an interview.
Oh, of course, you give him an interview.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also, though, this is a guy that deserves to have an interview. If you're looking at Kevin O'Connell, if you're looking at Kellen Moore, he is a guy that fits that list as well.
One more thing I want to ask you guys. Does John Elway get credit for George Payton
Yeah.
and his legacy?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Because
Do
a
you
lot
not
of
think so?
No, I think he does too. But I was joking this morning. I'm glad that people are fighting about Manning and Elway in my mentions now instead of Locke and Bridgewater.
That's for sure.
A much higher caliber of argument. But a lot of the John Elway naysayers are essentially using Peyton's success against John Elway, and I'm like, I think he gets credit for helping choose George Payton.
Not all of it, but probably the lion's share of it. Believe it or not, Vic Fangio probably gets
Yeah.
a little bit of credit too.
That's the weirdest thing
I was
ever.
going to say,
Yes.
I'd rather have
Vic Fangio
John
hired
Elway.
the guy that fired him.
Just a year later.
Yeah.
I'd rather have John Elway get the credit than Vic.
We should.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But that is weird. That was a weird setup from the start, and I knew this is exactly where we would be at one point.
Yep.
I mean, coaches are hired to be fired, but very rarely are they fired by a person they helped hire.
So soon.
That
too.
is that you
Do
think
you think
about.
Fangio played that card in the meetings this week with George Payton being like, dude, I was the one polling for you in those meetings.
If it weren't for me, you'd be up in Minnesota about to get fired right now with the rest of those guys.
Yeah, you rescued him. I feel like I would. I would have played that card if I was Vic.
Boy, George got out at just the right time of Minnesota.
He sure did. I mean, he probably would have had a landing spot.
Of course, I don't think he goes from fired assistant general manager to general manager, though.
That would have been a impressive upward fall.
Yeah.
Right. John Elway had an impressive upward
Yeah,
fall,
he
too.
sure did.
I mean, Minnesota, I don't like to grade drafts early. The Broncos draft looks great. Let's see where it is in a couple of years. Minnesota's draft, first returns last year were awful. And that was a draft without George Payton. So maybe, do you remember CU hiring Dan Hawkins?
Couldn't forget it.
Yes. The problem was Chris Peterson was the brains
Yeah.
behind the operation, right?
Yeah, and from people I've talked to who were actually at Boise during that time,
Yes.
you could ask anyone and they would have told you that.
Yep.
So good job, Mike.
So
Bone.
maybe George Payton was the brains behind what the Vikings were doing well
Yep.
all that time.
And that's a lot of people insinuated that during the Broncos GM search last year, saying like, man, this guy is adored in NFL circles because they think that he's a genius when it comes to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why he was such a hot candidate for so many years.
Yeah.
And he feels like a guy who's really well liked in the building. Mm-hmm. So we'll see who he wants to go get as head coach. Any other head coaching updates that we need to hit on here?
Yeah, we finally. Well, Mace, do you have something?
We'll have an interview tomorrow for the first interview. It's going to be Aaron Glenn in Detroit, and going to write a little bit more about him later on the DNVR.com. This is somebody whose his resume, at least in terms of the on-field performance in his only year as coordinator, doesn't really scream a lot, but this is sort of I know we've brought up the name Mike Vrabel in regard to Gerard Mayo. I think you can say the same thing with Aaron Glenn here, because Vrabel only had 1 year as coordinator in Houston and was awful. The defense was awful. But you're focusing on the leadership. You're focusing on even the playing background as well, the ability to communicate with and relate to the guys in the locker room. That can be an advantage of being an ex-player, becoming a coach. Of course, he was in New Orleans, went around Sean Payton and his staff, followed Dan Campbell to Detroit. And I think one thing that's interesting, guys, I don't want to put too much on public sentiment, but it is interesting how when news broke that the Broncos were going to interview Jonathan Gannon from Philadelphia, a lot of Eagles fans were like, okay, hey, fine, whatever, take him.
Yeah.
Detroit fans do not want to lose Aaron Glenn.
I wonder, I'd like to hear from them why, because a lot of the nice things that we're saying about Aaron Glenn are things that fans wouldn't necessarily be able to see unless the players were just gushing about him this year.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, how do you think Detroit fans feel about Dan Campbell? I think they freaking
love
love him.
him.
And so I think that there is a trickle-down effect there, and he probably has some characteristics of Dan Campbell in terms of being a very likable guy, fiery guy. And you take a step back and you say, wait. Fans shouldn't like Dan Campbell. Look how bad their team was this year, but they do like him. So I think there's something to that as well. The difference between the Vrabel and Mayo and Glenn here is no connection to the Patriots for Aaron. Glenn didn't play with them ever, never coached with them, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I think a lot of Broncos fans would say, "Oh, finally, not a Patriots assistant we're looking at."
He's more of a Sean Payton guy.
Yeah.
Really.
Yep, he played 1 year with New Orleans, his final year, and that was probably a reason that he came back there.
Yeah.
He had a 15-year playing career after being a first-round draft pick as a defensive back, and then his entire career has been as an assistant defensive backs coach, then a defensive backs coach, now defensive coordinator this past year.
And one thing that's really interesting is as long as Sean Payton has been there, we haven't seen a tree of Sean Payton yet. Like Dennis Allen went to the Raiders, and that was a really bad situation, and kind of thought he would be on some search radars this year, especially after the way the Saints defense nearly carried that team to the playoffs, but it didn't happen. But we really don't know enough about the Sean Payton tree at this point to judge whether he's going to be successful or not based on his background.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And
Dan Campbell,
honestly,
it's a year in. We don't know yet on Dan Campbell.
Joe Judge goes down, so there's another one bites the dust there.
I mean, Vrabel's the most successful one, and he never actually was an assistant under Belichick. He played for him, but he was an assistant under Urban Meyer and then Bill O'Brien, so he's kind of he is a branch of a branch.
The Joe Judge thing, I feel like, just reminds me that we need to stop thinking that being an asshole is a good characteristic of a head coach.
Yeah,
there are head coaches that can be that and work. But that's not something that you should look at and be like, this guy's a no-nonsense guy. Like, these are professionals that they're coaching. They don't need to be yelled at 24/7 by some hardo.
Connecting two things you guys just said, I cannot believe that Bill O'Brien is the favorite to become the next Jaguars head coach. You go from a guy that ruined a locker room with his personality and Urban Meyer to a guy that has a proven track record of doing that, and his players hating him.
Dismantling good teams.
That blows me away. I think Bill O'Brien is a really good coach when it comes down to scheme, when it comes down to play calling. That should probably stay under Nick Saban, who's going to control the rest of him. If I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm demanding a trade if this happens, because what a nightmare scenario for him.
If I'm Trevor Lawrence, I want them to hire Nathaniel Hackett.
I was just going to say that.
He actually
perfect fit.
Makes so much sense there, right down to the fact that a previous administration fired him. Clearly, the fact they're bringing in Hackett, I think the first thing that's going to be set up from an ownership level is, we're sorry we screwed up. We shouldn't have let you go.
Hackett kind of reminds me of Dan Campbell in a way. Of like he can walk in there and change the vibes, for lack of a better term. Like that's what these really, really bad teams need. Someone to come in there, bring positive energy, bring excitement. I watched that video that Nikki posted of Hackett. It's a little much for me.
A little cheesy? Like Dan Campbell biting the kneecaps off?
Exactly.
But did you smile watching it? It's cheesy, but it made you feel good watching it.
Right, and that's why I think
could listen to this guy every day.
That's why I think like the Jags that just have a dark cloud hanging over them, that kind of over-the-top positivity could actually make a big difference down there. Whereas in Denver, I think we just need a football coach.
You know what? The thing is, like, sometimes that's what an organization needs, and eventually it can wear a little thin. Pete Carroll is an example of somebody who's just uber positive, right? And he went to Seattle coming off of a disastrous year under Jim Mora the Younger, which, that was a place just like Jacksonville. They just need someone to part the clouds a little bit. And Pete Carroll, even though it could be a little bit over-enthusiastic, guys appreciated where he was coming from, where that enthusiasm was. And even before they got Russell Wilson and put together the Legion of Boom, the culture was already changing because of that. That's the kind of thing that Jacksonville really needs right now.
So are you guys saying that I'm wearing on you? All the upbeatness?
No.
Am I picking up a hint here?
No, I can handle it from you. To me, it's just like, I think that really worked for the Lions with Dan Campbell. It's a different style, but it is that like over the top personality, and there's a lot of guys like that.
It's good to get attention immediately, I think, too. Now, eventually, I think something that allows you to succeed is you got to, after a while, kind of scale it back and settle in.
Yeah.
Because you can't go at that gear forever. But as far as right away, kind of setting a tone, I think I think it's great to do that. Like Dan Campbell is not going to be able to do what he did last year forever.
No,
but it was important to kind of get everybody's attention.
Exactly,
especially after the guy before Matt Patricia was, by every account, a complete jerk.
Yep, that's what I mean. Stop thinking that being a jerk is a quality.
Funny how a lot of these guys are Patriots.
They are, exactly, because it's like,
Joe.
but Belichick did this. Well, Belichick went to the playoffs in his second year in New England. Like, that type of stuff it wears thin on people really quick if you aren't nailing your job.
I mean, people go to New England. They know their life's going to be miserable. They know that it's going to be a grind of all grinds, but they go there because they know they're going to win. In all these other situations, they say, wait, my life's going to be miserable. You're going to be an asshole to me, and I don't know if I'm going to win. No, thank you.
Count me out. Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what happened here with McDaniels. I mean, we were all the video. Someone posted the video again this week of when McDaniels was berating our friend Tyler Columbus and the offensive lineman on the sidelines that Thanksgiving night. All we're trying to do is win a game.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I'll never forget the one next year with Richard Quinn. First game he's playing in Jacksonville. At what point are you going to learn the bleeping the National Football League? Jesus bleeping Christ! I mean,
exactly.
Oh my God! It was all. I mean,
this is like
constant.
This is an old school way of thinking that you need to come in and you need to yell at everyone and tell them what to do and all that other stuff. And in most scenarios, it's just really not going to work anymore. You know
what's funny is this exact same conversation is completely opposite when you're talking about the quarterback position. Now, you can't be a 100% asshole, but if you don't have to, but the great ones likely have some of that in them, and they know when to taper off at sometimes. Sometimes they go over the edge, but when you're great, you get away with it. Yeah, and
it's hit or miss with that. It doesn't have to be that way, but a lot of the greats in all sports,
exactly,
have a little bit of that in them, and that when you have a little bit of that in you, it's part of just wanting to beat the crap out of people.
But if you're successful, it's fine.
Exactly.
Michael Jordan could get away with that.
It's Kobe, Peyton, John Elway.
Aaron Rodgers can get away with that because he's so freaking good at what he does.
Yes, exactly. Who could probably get away with this is the people down at Green Mountain Dental. They're that good with your teeth, but they aren't that way. They're the opposite. They're like the nicest people ever over there. They treat you like family, and they'll make sure you've got shiny, pearly white so you don't seem like one of those people. You seem nice and welcoming and warm. Green Mountain Dental Group, sign up for a cleaning, x-ray, and exam. They'll hook you up with a free Sonicare toothbrush, so when you leave the place, you can keep your teeth pearly and white. Hit up our friends over at Green Mountain Dental Group. A great place to go, just 15 minutes outside of Denver. And they're a Denver sports fan down there. They'll want to talk ownership or Broncos coaching search with you, too, while you get your work done.
You guys think 56-1 odds sounds pretty good?
Sure does.
You can get that over at DraftKings Sportsbook with pretty much even odds. What you do is right now for the playoffs, DraftKings is giving you a huge opportunity. Bet $5 on any playoff team to win, and if they do win a game this weekend, you get $256 in free bets in your account right now. That's for new customers. All you have to do is bet $5, and you'll get $256 if the team you pick to win wins. Chiefs are pretty big favorites this week. That may be a good one. There's some other good ones as well. To celebrate, of course, Super Bowl 56. That's why they're giving you 56-1 odds. And this weekend, they also have Hammer the Over on the Patriots-Bills game. So every time people hammer the over, it goes down. It's pretty much guaranteed to hit
0.
I have already hammered the over.
I have as well.
Everyone should get in on it as well. So head to the App Store now, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to get both of these offers and so many great deals over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And, of course, you must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
So I'm heading to a state this week where gambling or sports betting is not legal.
That's tough. You putting all the
You know
bets
I'm not
in
a
today?
planner. This I'm gonna plan. Need to set down some time to put some money on all these playoff games so that they are more fun for me. So I really, now that I've bounced around a little bit throughout the states, I really sympathize with the people who live in states that don't have DraftKings, because they're watching Bucks Eagles is like 20 times as good if you even just have like $10 on the game.
Right.
I mean, this is a state where you can gamble on sports and you can have marijuana.
Sure can.
I mean, you get to other places and it's just it's awful. It's awful.
The funny thing is, and maybe the worst funny thing is when you go to Las Vegas and you pull up your DraftKings Sportsbook app and it's not there. You're like, what? I'm in Sin City right now. Everything should be good.
The casino's got control over that.
They do.
It is. I'll say this. It is a little bit more fun to go to the sports book. You just don't get
It
as
is
good of
fun.
odds.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, right now with maybe you don't want to go to the sports books with Omicron going around, so it's like, hey,
There
you
you
know
go.
what? I want to do this safely and securely.
Being able to
with
do
my
it,
app.
Being able to do it from your couch is wow.
Yeah.
Just
And
a
also
blessing.
you can react to how the odds change. Like the thing I like doing during baseball season is making bets on both sides as the odds change in the late innings. Then I can't
guarantee
lose.
yourself a profit.
Yes.
That's how smart people do it. I just bet on the Nuggets or whatever.
Don't get bored going to the bank, as Jerry Burns used to say and Peyton Manning quoted recently.
Yep, never not had fun winning a bet.
Yep.
All right, let's jump into Super Chats first, and then we'll go to the comment section on the website. Just one quick one here from Neil. If Pete Carroll leaves Seattle, would Denver have interest? Isn't he like 100 years old?
Yeah.
He's
in
the
his-
oldest. He's second oldest coach, right behind Belichick, or is he the oldest?
I think he's the oldest. Isn't he in his 70s?
Yes.
Yeah,
I believe
and
he is.
Belichick is
Wow.
68 or 69. So, yeah, he is the oldest coach in the NFL, which is just crazy.
70
because,
years old. Yep,
Yep,
just turned
exactly.
70.
And Belichick is either...
older than Bill Belichick.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep. And you'll just never be able to tell because of the positivity and the energy that he brings. My only question is, it seems like something's going to happen in Seattle. Over the weekend, tons of reports coming out that Russ isn't going anywhere. Of course, that can change. But wouldn't we have heard something by now if Pete was leaving?
We maybe, but we've seen it extend a week or two or even 3. I remember it was, I believe, 11 years ago. Literally, I'm sitting on the plane leaving the Senior Bowl, and I get the notification that Jeff Fisher was out in Tennessee. Sometimes John Gruden, when he got fired by Tampa Bay, it was about a month into the offseason.
Wow.
So sometimes you start having these conversations.
It's kind of a red flag
Yeah.
on the decision makers for me.
Well,
Absolutely.
part of it is like you're trying to see where we are organizationally going forward, and are we on the same page or not? And I think that's actually what's going on in Seattle right now, is trying to get everybody on the same page. And it is entirely possible that Pete Carroll may and the Seahawks, everybody there may have come to their senses and said, look, we have this incredibly special and irreplaceable resource, a Hall of Fame quarterback, the best quarterback we've ever had, and he should still have several years left in him. Don't we? What is our best path back? Is it by tearing this down, or is it by building around this Hall of Fame quarterback and helping him have that kind of second prime that a lot of great quarterbacks have had when they've gotten in their late 30s? We've seen kind of, even Aaron Rodgers had a little bit of a dip right there around 2015, remember? Mm-hmm. But then he hit another level. Peyton hit another level in his late 30s. Drew Brees, Tom Brady. The trend lines are there for Russ to hit another level if they can get everything right around him.
And if Pete Carroll's staying at 70 years old, I'm sure he does not want to go into a rebuild.
And I don't think he wants to go somewhere else, is what I was going to say. I think Seattle will be his last stop.
He fits there. Like, there are some coaches that just they're meant to be where they are. Like, Pete Carroll to me is meant to be with the Seahawk logo on his chest, with the Air Monarchs that have the lime green accents on them.
Yeah.
That's him. That's nothing else seems right for Pete Carroll.
I would take it of all the people in terms of, I'm often accused of being ageist, and maybe you're right. I would take Pete Carroll. If he wanted to
You're
come
only
here,
as young as you feel, and you're only as young as you act. Like Vic Fangio, 63, probably acted even older
like
than
80.
that. Pete Carroll is 70 and he acts 43.
50,
He
yeah.
does. He
Yeah,
does.
I mean, that's fine.
If I'm Seattle, though, if Pete Carroll's coming back, it is because Russ is coming back. If there's a chance Russ isn't coming back because Pete Carroll's still there, I'm
Easy
saying,
choice.
see ya, Pete. We're keeping Russ.
What's more irreplaceable, the coach or the Hall of Fame quarterback?
Every
Hall of
time
Fame
the quarterback.
Yeah,
without
exactly.
a doubt. Howler Bro Surf, should we dive into the comment
dive
section?
in.
Says, why is there no chatter for Todd Bowles? Is it lack of interest by Denver, or is he comfortable where he is? Pretty exciting day and some interesting names for sure. I want whoever is going to bring us Russell Wilson or develop a young draft pick. I'm all the way out on Aaron Rodgers. 6 months ago,
Back-to-back
all
MVP.
in. He's really put a bad taste in my mouth, and I can't mentally separate that from on-field play. I will say there are a lot of people in that camp, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but then don't be saying like, oh, they should go get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Very fair.
There
He's-
comes a point you have to separate the art from the artist, I think, too. More and more,
some people-
more and more I
depending
feel
on-
that way.
Some people can't, though.
Yeah.
And depending on what they did, it depends on how you should view that.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between committing crimes and deceiving people.
I would have to think people that are out on Aaron have to be out on Deshaun. Most people,
I would-
say.
I would
Yes.
hope so, yeah. I mean, I'm going to be out on Deshaun before I'm out on Aaron based on what's
Yeah,
out there
of
on
course.
Deshaun.
Without
Yeah.
a doubt. He goes on and says, the Bears are no envy, but I admire their swings at the quarterback position. They've drafted 2 top quarterback prospects with real investments. Meanwhile, what have we done? Like Zach says, no real investment at all.
You know, Mitchell
Great
point.
Trubisky's season in 2018 when the Bears went and won the NFC North was better by a lot of metrics than any Broncos quarterback season in that span. The Bears have been to the playoff twice
Matt
in
Nagy,
that
coach
span.
of the year that year.
Yeah, Bears have been a
Wild.
playoff team twice since the Broncos last went to the postseason.
Wow. I mean, we saw
Yeah.
the graphic last night, and we've known this, but the graphic, Broncos, only the Jets have a
Oh!
longer playoff drought than the Broncos.
And the last guy to
now
get him-
do
yeah.
Super Bowl droughts.
Well,
It'll make me feel better.
yes.
the Jets would definitely be way further.
But the thing is, who was the guy who last got the Jets to double-digit wins? Not the playoffs, but double-digit wins. It was Todd Bowles.
Oh.
And yeah, it is curious that he has not gotten looks. Now, that being said, I hate to say there's an ageist component to this, but overwhelmingly the candidates you see teams looking at are younger. Leslie Frazier is an older coach who the Bears are going to interview, but Leslie Frazier is also a former Chicago Bear, played for Mike Ditka and Buddy Ryan back in the 1980s. So that's a little bit more. That the interview of him is, let's bring our native son in for an interview.
Think about this with Sean McVay. I don't know how old he is now. Wasn't he 32 when he got that job? He's probably like
yes.
37 now.
Yeah.
If all goes well, and it's rare in the NFL for this to happen, but he could be the coach of the Los Angeles Rams for, what would it be? 40 years. Yeah, 30,
coaches still Pete
38
Carroll.
years to be until he was the age of Pete Carroll.
yeah, that's absolutely insane. And the Broncos are looking at a youth movement right now.
Yes.
The average age of coaches last year was 50 years old, head coaches in the NFL. 6 of their 10 coaches are in their 30s right now. Only 2 are older than the average age of 50. Dan Quinn beats it by half a year. He's 51. And Eric Bieniemy, crazy enough, 52 years old. The average age of the Broncos coaching search right now, 40.
Yeah. I would bet a lot of money, though, that Sean McVay isn't coaching 40 years.
I don't think he would either.
I think Sean McVay in his mid-40s is becoming the best broadcaster on the air in the NFL.
I don't know. He's such a junkie when it comes to football.
was gonna say-
I could see him I could see him totally going the John Madden route.
There was
And Madden was a really young coach and was really successful, and by the time he was 42 years old, he was done. Like, that was it. It is such a grind
It is.
that you can understand why burnout is a thing doing that job.
I don't know how people do it, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I don't know how Belichick's done it for so long.
Oh, I don't know how you do more than 1 year, let alone decades.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really quick, though, on that, the only reason I would say I think he stays a coach forever is there was a quote, I think it was last year or something, on their bye week. For some reason, there was football on Saturday and Sunday. Maybe it was college and pros. And his wife said, okay, what do you want to do this weekend? And he said, oh, I'm watching football all weekend. And she said, this is your one weekend off to get away, to be with me. He's like, yeah, you can come hang out with me, but we're gonna be watching football all weekend.
You can love the game though, and
Yes.
still be. I mean, John Madden is a great example, and we're all thinking about him right now because he passed away, and of course there was that brilliant. Have you guys seen the documentary?
I have not, but
Yeah,
I've heard great
it's,
things.
It's terrific. It's worth your time. But like he loved football and was and literally to the day he died was a football lifer. He was still would still go to his office complex on Sundays and go watch all the games with the people around him, some of them who were involved with the Madden video game, etc.
cool.
He was still advising the competition committee and health and safety committee. He was still doing all of these things, but you can tire of the grind of one part of football and still love football, and that's why, kind of looking at the human side of Sean McVay, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets his coach. He's a successful coach now, but he is involved in another aspect of the game. Maybe Sean McVay becomes a team president at some point. Maybe he oversees an entire operation.
He's so in the X's and O's, though.
His dad was a great general manager.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I could see McVay doing the same thing.
Either way, it's just crazy to think. Some of these Broncos candidates, multiple of them are younger than who the Rams just signed. Eric Weddle just signed on with the Rams to go play in the stretch run for them.
That's awesome.
The Broncos have multiple candidates younger than that on this list.
Yep, and I love it. I love that they're looking that direction. Next one coming in from Jock says, great pod today, fellas. Love the camera cuts on the live show. Shout out to super producer Kale. Rather than a static camera the whole time. Small changes that make a big impact. You guys are pushing the right buttons over at DNVR. Cheers, boys.
Kale's the only one who actually presses buttons.
It's true. Omaha says, hey guys, I wanted to hear your thoughts on a non-coaching related topic for the Broncos. Who do you think will be back at the inside linebacker position? I ask because the only player currently under contract there that I could see starting next year is Baron Browning. But there are obviously multiple guys who came in and contributed at that position throughout the season. I personally thought Kenny Young and Browning made a great tandem and steadied the run game after the Browns debacle, but would also be cool if they brought back Josie Jewell. Is it safe to say Alexander Johnson is gone? And are there no better options available around the 9th pick? How would you guys feel about drafting Dean from Georgia? He's a crazy playmaker and his 4.0 GPA this past year. Thanks, fellas. I love that 4.0 GPA.
Yeah, you guys probably both had a 4.0 GPA in your life. Not me.
Fitting for a guy named Dean.
Yes.
Ooh, nice.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
Very good.
It's too early to talk about this because we have no idea who the coach is.
Yeah.
And I was thinking as we were reading it, I'm like, this doesn't seem like it's very on point. And I was like, yeah, how could we even know? Like, Dan Quinn runs a 4.3, or at least that's his background is a 4.3. No one runs anything,
Right.
the same all the time now. But all of that stuff is going to make a difference based on the personnel that's going to be here. So, I agree with the point about Kenny Young. I really like Kenny Young. I agree with the point about Baron Browning. I really like Baron Browning. I also really like Jonas Griffith. Like, you go down the line here, Josie Jewell is having a career year. Alexander Johnson was playing well. So, who knows?
We kind of saw in last Saturday that Griffith has some things to work on. Like,
of course.
That was a rough game for him. And I think when you kind of look at, okay, what direction do they go in? Let's assume that it could be Dan Quinn or anybody decides that going to keep a fair amount of the current coaches, maybe tweak a couple of things schematically, but keeps the coaches. And let's say they keep 3-4 looks. If they go 3-4, I would not be surprised if, even though he's a Vic guy, the guy they re-sign is Josie Jewell.
I mean,
Jewell and Browning become the pair with Jonas Griffith as the top backup.
It makes sense. It definitely makes sense. We'll see what they end up doing on that side of the ball. By the way, we saw, I think, Dan Quinn open at like plus 300 or something, all the way to minus 110 in some places now. So
As it should be.
Yes,
Wow,
It should be.
which is interesting because there's a lot of buzz about Nathaniel Hackett, but we also have to start wondering if maybe Quinn becomes the favorite because Hackett becomes a favorite somewhere else. Because he's interviewing with Chicago as well. And that's another place where with a young quarterback, he would make sense.
Yep, exactly. Speaking of Dan Burke chimes in and says, hey guys, so what happened with Doug Peterson? Media in Denver were pretty convinced that he'd at least get an interview. Mike Klis had him number 1 on his coaching list. Woodie Paige straight up said he'd get an interview. And then today we hear he's expected to be interviewed by Jason, or today we heard by Jason Lockenfor he's expected to get an interview, but then that gets shot down pretty quickly by Klis. Any insight onto what happened there?
Honestly, I think they're just looking for different types of coaches right now.
I'm convinced there's history.
Oh, there has to be.
Something like there's some intel that they have that maybe, and maybe, for example, Jonathan Gannon, who worked with George Payton in Minnesota, maybe Gannon has shared some things about what had to be cleaned up when he and Nick Sirianni got to Philadelphia.
Just to be a fly on the wall in the conversations that go on around the NFL. You know, obviously when you talk to sources, you get a little slice of it, but like the high level conversations that are happening between George Payton and Jonathan Gannon, like I just want to hear that stuff. It's so fascinating. It would make for a 50 out of 10 reality show if you could follow this stuff.
It certainly would. Jazzy Bronco says, thanks guys for awesome coverage this season. Wish we had more to cover playoff wise, but will be a huge off season for us and look forward to awesome coverage of that as the DNVR fam sticks together. You know we'll be here. My question for the day is, the NFL looked at modifying the way the draft order is set. The current system is not great for fans. I've watched the last 2 games wanting to win and wanting to lose. It's kind of weird. I think a more sensible way to do it, although it would not have benefited us this year, would be to lock in the records after all teams completed buys, then follow the same system. Pull out the playoff teams and stack by records that were locked with 3 to 4 games to go. Losses don't improve your pick, and wins down the stretch don't hurt. In fact, the opposite happens because ties are broken by winning percentage. Thoughts?
I think this would make tanking easier, actually, because you'd only really have to do it for 8 games.
And then you could be good?
Well, 12 or 13, because remember the buys went late this year?
Oh, okay.
Because saying until everyone has completed their buys, and you still had buys kicking into December this year.
Okay.
So
it waits until
every buy has been completed, and so basically you're probably waiting until after week 13 you kind of freeze.
In this world, wouldn't you just make everyone have a universal week 9 bye where you just take a little break in the middle of the season? It's like an all-star break.
Oh,
That'd probably be the most fair.
it'd be the most fair, but TV networks would never go for that.
This dream scenario would never happen in any scenario.
Instead of having the 9th overall pick, the Broncos would have the 13th overall pick.
That would suck.
I personally don't like it because then you're going to see some really bad teams that probably get screwed. And then let's say the Broncos get in there. I just want to, and that's one thing I love about the NFL is it is the most fair league to get back because there is a salary cap. There's no luxury tax. And then if you are the worst, you have an opportunity to get out of that by getting the best.
Are you guys in favor of like an NBA style weighted lottery?
No.
Okay.
Too easy to be fixed, which I believe the NBA lottery is every year.
Well, I mean, I think there's an easy way around that. Like they do, because they do. The problem with the NBA, I think, is that they do it kind of in the back room, right? Why can't they put all the balls in public,
cheat.
right? So you have the hopper, and let's say you start. It's the bottom like say the bottom say 5 teams, okay, and the team with the worst record has 20 balls, and the team with the second worst record has 10, and then on down the line. So you do it in public, and then whatever you pull out, it's above board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I mean,
do
that's
it
too
for me.
obvious, right?
The NHL does it that way.
Yes.
And I still don't trust it.
So you believe the frozen envelope theory for the first NBA draft lottery, right?
Yes.
And that was where they did put all the envelope. It was everyone had the same chance, 1 in 7. It wasn't weighted, and they put all the envelopes in, and David Stern kind of stirs the drum and all that, and supposedly the Knicks envelope was cold.
Of course, I believe that.
Yeah.
Never trust these places to do it the right way.
Yeah.
It's it's business.
I also don't feel like the NFL has a tanking problem. Maybe you guys can disagree
Not at all.
with me,
No,
but
we
I
kind of
don't
saw it
think
on
so.
Sunday. Look how the Jaguars played.
Yeah.
They played their best game of the season when it can be said they had nothing to play for, and then they still end up having the number 1 pick because Detroit
I'm sure there's
played
some,
a good game.
I'm sure there's some major league-esque conversations that go on in front offices, which is like, I want these guys to lose,
Oh, yes.
or Ted Lasso even. But you can't stop these guys who are like as close to warriors as you can be to being warriors.
Well, that's when they get into it on game day, that's it. Like
Right.
they're playing hard. I'm sure the conversations happened in every front office. Like, well, if we lose this game, we pick 9th, and
Yeah, exactly.
That
But
would
you,
help us.
you can't stop those guys from going out there and trying to win.
And I can say, and I can even tell you this, even like on the executive level, there was anger over losing that game on Saturday.
Also, in basketball, it's pretty easy to put 5 bad players on the court. It's really hard to put 22 bad players on the field at once.
Just ask Dan Campbell when the Lions were in town, though. And to your point, that was an extremely obscure time.
Yes. All right. From C. Fillmore, 72. Good day, gentlemen. Have really enjoyed the pods of late, with most of them having all three of you involved. Great chemistry, a blend of viewpoints and opinions, the spicy takes, humors, and back and forth debate. Top stuff. Thank you. On the Around the NFL podcast, the chaps were speculating about the Browns potentially trading away Baker in his final rookie deal year. He didn't come up with the QB. He didn't come up in the QB debates in December. Do you think he'd fit? Is he an upgrade? And would you give? What would you give up in a trade for the former number 1 overall pick? A first and a fourth?
Nope.
Christopher.
Not that much, because it's a fifth year option year, so it's a contract year for him.
Fifth year option isn't quite as cheap.
Right. So, and it's basically a 1 year deal, so it could be one and done. Now, Baker Mayfield's trend is on 1 year, off the next. So by that, like, very good rookie season. Pulled back under Freddie Kitchens in 19. Excellent third season. Struggled last year with injuries. So you might be getting a guy who's poised to have a good season.
But then you'd be, what do you do after that?
You're paying him $30 million.
You're probably giving him the franchise tag and seeing what he does for another year.
Fair enough.
His cap hit's 18.9 next
Yeah.
year. If that
Yeah.
It's like the old Case Keenum number.
He's
I'm-
he's your middle class quarterback then.
Yep, and I'm not doing that, because you're not only paying him a lot, you probably want to also potentially give him a contract extension, or you could go the franchise tag route. But then if it gets to that point and you're franchise tagging him, then you're probably going to be paying him a massive contract, and then you're also giving up resources for him.
Yeah, I'd give up maybe like a 2.
I was gonna say they have 2 2s, don't they, this year?
Yes. A 1
I'd
and
give one of 'em.
a 1 and a 4 I'm not doing. If it's Baker Mayfield
No ones.
or taking Matt Corral at 9 and starting the clock on Corral and seeing where he goes,
Yep.
I'm taking Corral.
I don't think the Browns would trade Baker for less than a 1.
And that's
There
their
you go.
prerogative.
Yeah,
you know,
that's-
he's their guy. If I were them, I would see it to the finish line either way.
Right.
From Kendall Hinton, Hall of Famer. Guys, you lost me. As I said, oh wow, okay. It's nothing you guys did. Maybe this is one that's just for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
But but he gets into like Dan Quinn talking.
Yeah, so I'll go down
Let's
to
go there. Yeah.
So reposting from yesterday, like Dan Quinn, but it's also hard to get excited about him. The best coaches with experience are already taken because they're on teams. Andy Reid, Belichick, just like the best QBs with experience are already taken. You can choose to go with someone who's been to a Super Bowl, aka Flacco or Jimmy G, or Peterson and Quinn at coach instead of a young prospect at QB or coach. But how many people really get excited about those guys? QB and coach aren't perfectly analogous, but they're close enough. We should bring the same energy for them that we would with QBs with experience that aren't the best, like Jimmy G. Even if Quinn is the higher, though, this is shaping up to be a hell of an exciting offseason.
I agree. It's shaping up to be that. So is he advocating for Jimmy G?
I think he's talking about how you have people that have been to a Super Bowl, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're great. Like Jimmy Garoppolo and Joe Flacco, they weren't worth big contracts as it turned out, but they got to a Super Bowl, and maybe the same is true for Dan Quinn. I think the thing with Quinn that does intrigue me most is that he's 3 for 3 on offensive coordinator hires. So clearly, and that's a skill as well, knowing what you want on offense and finding the person to get that. Yes, I know we had Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, but those offenses were better with Dan Quinn than they ever were with Mike Smith as head coach.
Yep. And Kendall Hinton, Hall of Famer. Sorry that you've kind of come on some hard times. We hope to have you back another time and let us know if we can help you out in any way.
Absolutely.
All right. I think that wraps it up for us today. We're trying to keep these a little bit shorter. We've been going long lately. I'm sure there'll be some 2-hour pods coming up eventually as we get it a little more down, or they hire a coach, or they get a new owner. But an hour and 15 will do it for today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Sorry we couldn't get to all of your comments. You know that we're doing our best there. There's just so much to talk about right now. So hopefully we'll get to some more tomorrow, and hopefully more exciting news soon. That's going to wrap it up for us today on the DNVR Broncos podcast. For Zach and Mace, we'll see you guys tomorrow.